Thank you, Siri. And let me just see if I can turn on my original sound. Not sure how to do that. Okay. Just going to unshare for one moment so I can switch the sound. Karov Hashem Lichol Korah Lichol Hashem Yikreu Karov Hashem Lichol Korav Lichol Hashem Yikreu Karov Hashem Lichol Korav Lichol Hashem Yikreu Yeshua. welcome everyone again. Welcome. I just want to invite us to take a moment and look around the Zoom room. I don't know if you've been doing much Zooming during this pandemic, but we're on 3 screens and there's a little arrow at the right, and you can just click that arrow and see other people that are here. Some whom I'm sure you know, some whom you've never seen before. There may be more people that join us. And just to welcome each other. We all knew and loved Chandana and connected with her in different ways over, some of us, a shorter period of time, and for some of us many years, and for some of us our whole lifetimes. And we're here to remember her, to honor her, to lift up her soul on its journey, and to comfort our own hearts. And some of you may be familiar with the Jewish custom. At funerals, the family of the one who has passed are often given little black ribbons, which are then cut and ripped. And the ancient custom was actually to rip your clothing. And there's something about that ripping. I have a scarf that I have ripped when I've been grieving. The sound of the ripping, that sense that our hearts are torn, they're treif. And of course we will heal, but there will always be a trace of that wound of our hearts, that tear in our hearts as we miss our beloved one. We're going to move into several short prayers that come from the Jewish tradition. I invite you to pray along with me, sing along with me, hum along with me, close your eyes and meditate, breathe along with these prayers. They're part of the traditional evening service, very short snippets of that service. And then we'll move into some time of sharing about Chandana and end with the traditional prayers that we say when someone has died. And a number of people have stepped forward to speak tonight. And after we finish the formal part of the evening, I'll be holding the Zoom room open for any of us who would like to stay and spontaneously share stories or memories of our beloved friend, our beloved kinswoman. Let me see if there's anything else. Let's just take a breath together. Inhale, exhale, to feel yourself in your own space, and just to know that we are connected across many miles, from one side of the country to the other, from the north to the south, the Midwest to the east to the west. And just invite you to stay muted so that we can hear. I'm going to share my screen again as we move into the prayer service, and you'll see that the prayers are here. So we begin with a call to prayer, and I invite you, it's traditional, to rise or to change your body position in some way so that we are calling one another and ourselves, all the parts of ourselves, into the sacred space. Baruch hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed. Return to a more comfortable position, more relaxed position as we move into the prayer for the evening. This prayer that honors the changing of the light, the changing of the seasons in nature and in our lives. I'll let you in on a secret about how one should pray the sunset prayer. It's a juicy bit of praying, like strolling on grass. Nobody's chasing you. Nobody hurries you. You walk toward your Creator with gifts in pure, empty hands. The words are golden. Their meaning is transparent. It's as though you're saying them for the first time. If you don't catch on that you should feel a little elevated, you're not praying the sunset prayer. The tune is sheer simplicity. You're just lending a helping hand to the sinking day. It's a heavy responsibility. You take a created day and you slip it into the archive of life where all our lived out days are lying together. See how whole it all is. Not diminished for a second. How you age with the days that keep dawning. How you bring your lived out day as a gift to eternity. Baruch atah Adonai Hama'ariv Aravim. A wellspring of blessing are you, ground of being, who brings on the evenings. We steep ourselves in love. 4 flavors of love. This is a melody that we did very often with Chandana during our Friday. We do it during our Friday healing circle, which she has attended, been part of, and been the center of for the past 2 years. Love and compassion, loving kindness and wholeness. Ahava v'rachamim chesed v'shalom. Ahava v'rachamim chesed v'shalom. Drawing our attention inward and outward at the same time. You might want to just place one hand on your heart, one on your forehead, and allow your heart and your head to move toward each other, to connect with one another. This is our witnessing of oneness. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. Listen up, we say, God wrestlers. The beingness that sourced us created everything. A wellspring of blessing is the presence that fills all materiality through all time and space, and we are a witness. Ve'ahavta, and you love, et Yud-He Vav-He, the nameless, Elohecha, however you call her. B'chol levavcha, through all your heart, uv'chol nafshecha, with all your breath, uv'chol me'odecha, and by means of all that you are. V'hayu, and they will be, hadvarim ha'ele, these words, asher, that anochi, I, mitzavacha, make imperative for you, hayom, right now. Al, upon livavecha, your heart. Vishinantam, repeat them, livanecha, to your children. Vidibarta, and speak, bam, from within them. V'shivtecha, while you're sitting betecha, in your home. Uvlechtecha, when you're going baderech, out and about. Uvshochbecha, when you lie down to rest. Uvkumecha, and when you get up. Ukshartam, bind them, leot, as a sign, al, upon yadecha, your hand. V'hayu, and they will be, latotafot, like windows, bein, between einecha, your eyes. Uchtavtam, inscribe them, al mizuzot, upon the thresholds, betecha, between inner and outer, uvisharecha, upon all the liminal moments of your lives. We call in now the protection of all the unseen, the invisible, the vibratory, the angelic, however you imagine protection, as we are entering the nighttime. Ufros Leinu Sukkah Shlomecha spread over us wings of peace. Shalom. Draw water in joy from the living well. Draw water in joy from the living well. Ma'im chayim, waters of life. Shalom. Spread over us wings of peace. Shalom. Draw water in joy from the living well. Draw water in joy from the living well. Ma'im Chayim, waters of life. Shalom. Baruch atah v'yashomer amo Yisrael lad. We'll take some moments in silence now to just offer the prayers of your heart, to be with your breath, and perhaps to rest some of your awareness with Chandana, with her soul's journey right now, and we'll just be together here. God who makes peace in heaven above, quiet my heart, my mind, my soul. Give us your peace and love, and help us make the world whole. Osei shalom bimromah, hu ya'aseh shalom leinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. God who makes peace in heaven above, quiet my heart, my mind, my soul. Give us your peace and love, and help us make the world whole. So before we move into some speaking about our dear one, just have a few pictures to share with you and to help bring her forward in our minds and hearts.
I am the rays of the rising sun. Snow on the mountains of the moon, the far-flung canopy of stars, the shadows of late afternoon. I am the wisdom of the sage. I am the refuge of all who weep. I am the mother of all who live. I am the promises I keep. I am the one who sits with sorrow. I am the one who feels your pain. I am the hope of your tomorrow. And all is lost, I still remain. I am the one who will remain. I am the seed that longs to bloom, the river yearning for the sea, the heartfelt hope of every moon. I am the faith you place in me. I am the silence and the sound, the gentle rain that breaks the stone. I am the dream of love unbound. I am the way that calls you home. I am the one who sits with sorrow. I am the one who feels your pain. I am the hope of your tomorrow. When all is lost, I will remain. I am the one who will remain. I am the one who sits with sorrow. I am the one who feels your pain. I am the hope of your tomorrow. When all is lost, I will remain. I am the one, I still remain.
So for those who have joined in the last little while, I'm Rabbi Diane Elliott. I'm here in the Bay Area. I'm going to share a little bit about Chandana and then invite some of her beloveds to speak and tell you more. Patricia D. Becker was born September 8, 1952 in Greenville, Kentucky, the third of four children of Hazel Harriet Cohen Becker and Marvin Isaiah Becker, better known as Buddy. The family lived with Hazel's parents in Greenville, where Grandpa Alexander Cohen, known to friends and family as Alec, owned a general store that sold everything from guns to furniture to hardware. As people used to say, if Cohen's doesn't have it, You don't need it. Alec had come to this country as a boy, just past the turn of the 20th century. He and his older brother had left northwestern Poland and come through Ellis Island, found they didn't like New York, and went to stay for a while with cousins in Fall River. Eventually, the two boys walked all the way to Kentucky, where they had relatives, and settled there. From his humble beginnings as a peddler, Grandpa Alec worked his way up. Known as a smart, resilient, honest, hardworking, and kind man, he and his family were respected members of the community. Linda, who actually shared a lot of this information with me, Linda tells me that the kids were subjected only to the kindly variety of anti-Semitism, meaning there was no Ku Klux Klan activity in the county, but their young Christian friends worried that they would go to hell, and so they urged them to get baptized. Even after the Beckers moved 7 miles away to Central City to open up their own store, when Patricia was 4, they would go to Shabbos dinners at the grandparents back in Greenville every Friday night. The extended family would gather to light the candles, bless the bread and wine, and welcome the Shabbos bride. After dinner, Grandpa Alec would lead an evening service, including his own special prayer for basketball season to end early so everyone wouldn't have to rush off to the Friday night game. For communal services, the family traveled 35 miles to the synagogue in Hopkinsville, which had no rabbi, but was served by student rabbis from Hebrew Union College in Cincinnati, whom the local families would all vie to host for the weekend. Close-knit family, solid values, Jewishly observant. The 4 Becker children, Doug and Linda, Patty and Hank, grew up in a rich and loving environment. After high school, Patricia attended Madisonville Community College for a year, then went on to Boston University, where she completed her undergraduate degree, and she then went to Seattle to study for her master's degree at Antioch, and later completed her PhD in clinical psychology at the University of Wyoming. While she was in Seattle, she became deeply interested in Hinduism and felt a strong desire to visit an ashram in Mumbai, a trip for which her sister Linda lent her the money. Later, she came to live in the Siddha Yoga ashram in Oakland, and there she became Chandana and met her husband, Naranya, Donald Judges. Don held degrees in psychology from Johns Hopkins and psychology from Johns Hopkins and a degree in law from the University of Maryland, and he taught for many years at the University of Arkansas in the School of Law, where he eventually became associate dean and an administrator of the global campus, overseeing their online programs. Both brilliant, highly educated, and well-respected in their fields, Chandana and Naranya made a fine life together for over 30 years. They built a beautiful house on 14 acres outside Fayetteville, Arkansas, and bought another 15 contiguous acres to preserve the land from further development. There, Chandana developed her psychotherapy practice, and also she had trained also in polarity therapy, becoming a respected practitioner and teacher of that work, as well as in Peter Levine's somatic experiencing work. She traveled to teach. She cared for and loved her animals, and she planted gardens, becoming a member of Master Gardeners. She loved her therapy practice and helped countless people. The great sadness in her life, she called it a game changer, was when Naranya became increasingly depressed and felt that he needed to leave the marriage. It was an ache that Chandana could never assuage, a rupture that she couldn't comprehend. It was about that time that she found my program on the Aleph Alliance for Jewish Renewal website, Embodying Spirit, Inspiriting Body, a residential retreat program in embodied Jewish learning and practice. Between 2015 and 2018, she came out to California for 3 week-long retreats at Four Springs, a retreat center in Lake County north of Napa Valley. Sometime after that first retreat, Chandana told us that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer. Still feeling well and determined to connect with the Jewish community in which she felt at home, she made the long trips out for the subsequent retreats 2 more times. She was a very private person, and she didn't tell us much about her background and all that she'd done in the world, but we knew that she was a uniquely special soul, wise, spiritually deep, loving, and we loved her back. I'll speak just a bit more later about the Embodying Spirit crew and our connection with Chandana over these past 6 years, but I'm going to turn it over now to members of her family and close professional colleagues and friends who can fill in more about who she was as a person and a healer, her radiant being, and her rippling circles of service and influence in the world. So I'd like to invite Doug, if you would unmute, and I think you can unmute yourself and share with us.
Can you hear me?
You can, thank you.
Rabbi, we thank you for your words and your song. I know that my sister would definitely enjoy every bit of the service. Of course, you've already mentioned that Patty was born in Greenville, Kentucky. At the time, I was 9 years older than her. And we had a mother who had liberated herself. In other words, she decided that formula would be just fine for her babies. And sure enough, she did get, formula, the type used at that time in 1952. At that time, I sort of became a deputy parent and learned how to fix her formula, feed it to her, and enjoy the relationship between her and myself. We did that for a good number of times during her first year when she did drink formula, and then after she was switched over to more different adult type formula, we did that too. We grew up together. We lived with our grandparents for a few more years, and we enjoyed the life in Greenville until we moved to Central City nearby. At that time, she started going to kindergarten and then subsequently elementary school. About the time that she was a little older, up and about and all that, I went off to college. I'm a good bit older, and that occurred for me, and a lot of the home things didn't get my approval, or whatever you might say. That she was a rebellious teenager, and we all knew her as strong-willed. Sometimes people like that will make decisions that aren't always right for a good life, but she made her own decisions, and we all had to live by it. We learned how to do that. I guess that when she mentioned the fact that she had cancer, which ran in our family, her grandmother, my grandmother, had the same illness back in the 1940s and lost her life to it. Patty, as she was called by the family, were said, what about that? Are you going to take treatment? And of course, she decided that she had a way to handle this hers on her own. It was, as we all know, something that led to her demise. It was a sad time for us that to see her sick and uncomfortable. And we all wished, prayed for her, we talked to her and kept her spirit buoyed up as much as we could. Sorrowfully, it works out as just as you might expect, but we loved her just the same. And whenever we talked to her, we hopefully help keep her feeling better, handling her issues. And we're sorry to lose her. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doug. And I know you did call her every week, and I'm sure that was an important lifeline for her. So thank you so much.
It was. Thank you.
So I want to invite Linda, Chandana's sister, to unmute and share some thoughts and remembrances with us. Thank you, Linda.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the person that many of you only knew as Chandana. Of course, in the family, we first knew her as Patty. And Patty was born a seeker. And as we all know from Harry Potter, the seeker is the most important. So that's why there are so many friends and family gathered to celebrate her. And I appreciate each of you coming here because it's a very sweet thing. So I'm just going to talk a little bit. I have to really cut down because I wrote pages, but mostly I think you'll know what a unique person she was. And I know you know that. So my sister Patty was born after a trip to the Dairy Queen. And for years afterwards, our dad would say, when we wanted to go for ice cream, he'd say, "Oh, God, no, we don't need another baby in this family." So she just kind of popped out as smart as a whip and as shiny as a penny, and with a mind of her own and the will to enforce it. And the first time she spoke, she was only 3 months old and said night night to a whole crowd of family, and everybody's jaw dropped. By the time she was a year old, she could talk rather clearly whenever she wanted to. And one day my mother put a chicken leg on her high chair, and she looked at it and said, "I don't want that. I want white meat." So that was Patty from the beginning. She, as a little kid, well, some of her contrariness was just plainly hilarious. When she was about 3, she said she was bored. And my mother said, "Well, how about if we call a friend? You can play with somebody." And she says, "I can't. I'm mad at all my friends." And so Mom said, "Well, how about if you play with your imaginary friends?" And she says, "I'm mad at them too." So she was really a funny little kid. When she was 4, we moved to Central City, and we had a succession of young high school girls who would come to babysit in the afternoon so that our mother could go to the store and work for a little while. And so some were good for Patty and some were maybe not so good. But one of them, who was really a darling, was a young Black girl named Margie. And right before Rosh Hashanah, my mom had left out a really cute dress for Patty to be dressed up in. And so, of course, Margie did what any loving big sister would do in her family. She dressed her up and she fixed her hair. And when we walked in, there was Patty with a whole jar of Vaseline in her head and on her scalp with the cutest cornrows you ever saw. our mother just about plotzed during that. It took us about 2 weeks to get it all out, and I think we had to cut her hair at the same time. So that was one of the sitters. A second one that Patty really hit the wall with was a girl named Lawanza Belials. She was white. She was a white girl who lived across town, and she tried really hard. But when you have a little kid like Patty with an iron will, you can guess who won the fights. So one day they had a fight. God only knows what it was about. It's lost in the midst of time, but it was a true altercation, and little kids don't always play fair. So she bit Luanza on the breast, and then she ran out of the house and said, "I'm going to tell your mother on you," and took off. And poor Luanza, in hysterics, was calling the store to say what happened. So my mother had to go and round up that little stinker and say, "You don't get to do that to people." And she's going, "Yeah, but she was really wrong." So it was a tough sale, and Luanza didn't last too long. So we had some really funny times when she was little, because she could just be too smart sometimes for her own good. So, little things like a shopping trip with Patty wasn't like a shopping trip with anybody else. We'd all be picking out a pile of clothes and a bunch of shoes, and she was very particular. And she would spend the whole time, she had to find that one perfect coat or that one pair of shoes, and so her bag wasn't as full, but she was just as happy and we were just as happy. So it worked out okay. So I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit and say that when she was in college at BU, and I worked at Boston University at that time, the two of us went to a John Prine concert together. And for those of you who know the singer-songwriter, he sang about Muhlenberg County, which is where we were from. So and sadly, John Prine died about a year ago of COVID, before I think the vaccine was available. So at that time, we went backstage and said where we were from, and they literally grabbed us and hauled us into this party where we were the only two people who were not high as a kite. It was really a fun night. We just kind of laughed our way through it. So later, Patty became Chandana and developed a lasting interest in Hinduism, and it was so very important to her during her lifetime, just as Judaism was very important to her. And sometimes it was kind of baffling to our parents. So when she and Narayan got married, it was a Hindu ceremony. And both mothers sat and cried during their whole ceremony, not because they were angry or hurt or anything else. They just didn't quite understand the person who was officiating with a bald head and a saffron robe. The whole thing was really strange to them. So I want to say that life was never boring with my sister. She lived the way she wanted to, and how few people get to say that in this lifetime. So if there is another lifetime, peace and blessings on you, my dear Chandana, and may the next life Be sweet and peaceful and happily surrounded by many friends and like-minded folk who can keep up with your many and varied interests because they were so wide. And just like the friends who and family who are here tonight and come together in loving remembrance, and we appreciate you all.
Thank you so much, Linda. Those were amazing memories, vignettes, and really gave us a strong flavor of who Chanda was as a kid. So thank you. So we're going to turn next to is Josh here?
Oops. Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Josh.
Hi. Thanks for organizing this. Thanks for having me. Hello to everyone. I am Chandana's nephew. I came along sometime after formula, and she was still rejecting chicken legs when I was born. What can I tell you about my aunt that you don't already know? She was an incredible person who lived very much by her own rules. And what I mean when I say that is that she had a deep sense of what was right in this world, and she was uncompromising about it and unwilling to cut any corners, whether it meant regardless of what it meant. She would inconvenience herself in small and huge ways in order to do what she knew to be right. And I've been very lucky in the past few years to be able to spend a bunch of time with her. And she just had like a real love of life and a passion for life. And I think that it's important to remember when you reflect on, among other things, the treatment that she selected for herself, that she truly wanted to live and get well and never once wavered from that. What she was pursuing was her own health and well-being. And I think that it is remarkable because she was such a giver and such a very generous-hearted person who, I can't tell you what all of your relationships with her were like, but for me, I could talk to her at length about anything in the world, except for what was going on with her most of the time. I could tell her anything that was going on with me, but she would never lay any of her problems at my feet, even if I pursued her. She was very good at just not burdening other people with her problems. And so I think it's it's important to remember that while she was this wonderful, generous person, she also cared about herself. And it might, I'm not saying that it would be easy to miss that, but that you might not necessarily understand that. God, I wish I had some great Lawanza stories to tell you. I didn't meet any of those babysitters, but they sound like she really got into a lot of trouble with them. I haven't really organized the way like my mom has, with like an entire biography that she cut to a précis version very nicely. But I will tell you that in stories, the best heroes accept their missions that are thrust upon them, but not their fate. And she was, you know, all the way to the end, very much in charge of accomplishing everything that she ever wanted to. And I'm gonna miss her terribly. And I'm so glad that I could see all of your faces. I know that you all miss her too.
Thank you, Josh. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we're going to do a little pivot and move into just hearing from a few more folks who knew Chandana more in her professional life. And I know that I've been hearing from many folks who were really shocked to hear that she had passed away because they didn't really know that she was ill. So to make the transition into that, I'm wondering if, is Sandra here with your poem, A Tear and a Smile? Are you here?
Yes, I'm right here.
Great. If you would share that with us now, just as a kind of transition. And thank you so much.
So just a little story here. Chandana, I knew her back in 1999 when I co-sponsored in with John Katowski, and Renee was in the class too. They're both here now. And for the trauma training from 1999 to 2002. And the work she did was amazing and life-changing for me. And she just made a difference for so many people. And later on, we got back in contact in the last 10 years in a deeper way. And because both of us were going through our own health issues down the line, me with a kidney transplant and her with her cancer, we were really able to enter a real deep place of conversation about our fears and our wishes and just questioning life and our uncertainties and, you know, what we needed from each other. And it was just really, really special sharing. And so when I came across this poem, it just came up the other day to me. It reminded me of her because I always found that she was always willing to go into those deep places. She was not, whatever she was dealing with and whatever other people were dealing with, she would take the plunge and go there. So this is by Gahil Gibran, and it's called A Tear and a Smile. I would not exchange the sorrows of my heart for the joys of the multitude. And I would not have the tears that sadness makes to flow from every part to turn into laughter. I would that my life remain a tear and a smile. A tear to purify my heart and give me understanding of life's secrets and hidden things. A smile to draw me nigh to the sons of my kind and to be a symbol of the glorification of the gods. A tear to unite me with those of broken heart. A smile to be a sign of my joy in existence. I would rather that I died in yearning and longing, that I live weary and despairing. I want the hunger for love and beauty to be in the depths of my spirit, for I have seen those who are satisfied, the most wretched of people. I have heard the sigh of those in yearning and longing, and it is sweeter than the sweetest melody. With evenings coming, the flower folds her petals and sleeps, embracing her longing. At morning's approach, she opens her lips to meet the sun's kisses. The life of a flower is longing and fulfillment, a tear and a smile. The waters of the sea become vapor and rise and come together in area cloud. And the cloud floats above the hills and valleys until it meets the gentle breeze, then falls weeping to the fields and joins with brooks and rivers to return to the sea, its home. The life of clouds is a parting and a meeting, a tear and a smile. And so does the spirit become separated from the greater spirit to move in the world of matter and pass as a cloud over the mountain of sorrow and the plains of joy to meet the breeze of death and return whence it came, to the ocean of love and beauty, to God.
You, Amen. Beautiful. So, Patricia, are you here? Patricia is a colleague and friend, a psychologist in the Arkansas community.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you so much.
Okay. How do you say goodbye to a friend? Chandana was a woman of many talents. She took her early training in polarity therapy, and that set the tone for her entire professional career. She received her PhD a year before her 40th birthday, earned her PhD. I became acquainted with her initially through Psychologists of Northwest Arkansas, our professional organization here. One of her characteristics was that she was especially welcoming to new members and inclusive. I had moved here from New York, so it was so nice to be invited and included. And it was Chandana and Marty Fatek who were especially reaching out to me. Outside of her private practice, her forte was education. She had taught even internationally. But she also brought many, many fine speakers to Fayetteville, along with our colleague, Scott McCarty. They became a great team. So PNWA was sponsoring these things, but they got so good at it that they just said, let us put it together and then we'll tell you your tasks. And we were all happy to do that. So she also was very, very passionate about giving credit where credit was due, while asking not recognition for herself. So she always presented and saw to it that others had a plaque or some other elegant memento of their service, and would make some kind of wonderful tribute, which to me makes this gathering extra special for her, to honor her. Chandana loved greatly, and she suffered fools gladly. She never lost sight of her mission to help others and spread the cause of mental health. She was a staunch supporter of Mental Health America here in the Fayetteville chapter, and she served on that board along with other core members of the group. In her emails, Chandana had a habit of addressing members by their initials. Thus, it was very common to receive an email to Dear SM, Dear SC, BS, Dear PS, MM, and one of my personal favorites, DVK. And she always signed these emails CB, usually prefaced by warmly, CB, or well wishes, CB. Several years ago, our group kind of floundered because nobody wanted to serve as officers. And so Chandana, although she privately was struggling with her illness at the time, stepped forward and said that she would not be president She would not be secretary, but she would be treasurer. So she carried the organization by herself the last few years, becoming ex officio, of course, president and secretary. But if she were here right now, she would say, no, I was treasurer. And she carried that until several weeks ago when the other members stepped forward and took over. As a colleague and friend, Chanda and I shared many activities, and I especially liked going to Theater Squared with her. She had a high intellect, and after every play, she would be able to be so focused and just succinctly put together a synopsis and an insight that just brought it all home in just a few well-chosen words. Early on in our relationship, I had occasion to call Chanda at her office, and she ended her recorded email with the words, "Take good care." I was particularly struck by the grace of that, the love of that, and the loving admonition. And I adopted it as my own as well. Chandana was an intensely private person. Few outside her inner circle knew the extent of her desperate struggle to live or her passion for clinging to life. As loving and giving as she could be toward others, she was strong in her personal beliefs, and when it came to her personal issues, as Josh said, she preferred to keep her own counsel. Among the others that helped her, and there were quite a few, I would like to publicly thank her devoted caregivers, Margot and Marcy, and our colleague, Sue Clement, her great friend and colleague, for the service they gave to her. When I think of Chandana now, I think of her having the characteristics of a lioness, proud, fierce, passionate, focused, and protective of those in her life and care. In my family, we have a particular epitaph we use in close personal situations. The words are these: "May the long-time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on. Farewell, sweet girl, woman, beloved colleague. Take good care."
Thank you, Patricia. Let's just take a little breath, and we've received a lot already. And we have a couple more folks to speak. So we'd love to hear now from Eleonora Lipton, one of Chandana's dear friends and colleagues in the polarity therapy community.
You hear me? Good to go? Oh my gosh. I'm so blown away. One of my teachers said, when someone has died, when they have passed on, it is extraordinary how much more you get to know them just because of this. So I'm so deeply touched, and I would love to just invite you for just a moment of silence. I have this traditional candle from the Jewish tradition with the Star of David, and it won't burn for a whole 7 days, but it will burn for as long as it can. And just take a moment and focus on that love and the memories of what she meant to you. And which is probably even more. Yeah. And we light this candle said that her soul and spirit in this transition will always know where the light is. So, Baruch Hashem. I want to also mention that this is an extraordinarily auspicious time, being for those of you who relate to this in this season of Scorpio, it is the season of the mystic. And Chandana was indeed a extraordinary spiritual seeker, and all these qualities that you mentioned for me just wrap up in her being such an extraordinary, brilliant seeker, as you said, and carried the depth of the mystic soul. So I knew her starting in the early 1980s through the first Atlanta American Polarity Therapy Association conference. I believe we met up at the second one, and I really can't even remember the year, but that was decades, and it's just, so I wanted to share with you that this synopsis of how I have held her all this time, that she was outstanding in all she pursued, masterful as a polarity practitioner and as a psychologist and a longtime spiritual seeker, assisting clients and students to navigate their inner world for a stronger, more confident life in the world. I was in awe of her when she was president of APTA. And as we spent at least 3 decades, maybe more, because like we're so old now, at these conferences, we worked some on the board of directors together, taught some classes together, and we worked a lot on growing the polarity profession. She held a strong, grounded perspective based on authenticity, accuracy, and deep sincerity. I loved what you said about her being uncompromising, because in light of that spirit of being uncompromising, she was extraordinarily present. And she brought a light to every conversation, always pursuing the highest ideal. We have a dear friend who couldn't be with us tonight, and I'm going to conclude by sharing what he said. This is Dr. Damon Fazio, who is also part of this decades together in our polarity world. And this is what he has to share: that Chandana was an awesome person, the very best of people you could ever experience. She will be even more awesome without the burden of a physical body. I'm happy she is free, but I will miss her very much. She was single-handedly responsible for APTA having a code of ethics and saw the board of directors through some very tough times. She helped many people heal and understand trauma. She was one of the people I trusted the most. With great love, we bid you a glorious new journey, Chandana. Shalom.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Beautiful.
Thank you, Rabbi Diane. I'm so grateful to you for bringing us all together. And I'm so deeply touched to meet all of the family. It's just extraordinary. And see some of my old friends. Hello. And new friends. So God bless. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. So we have one more person. This is our dear Nancy Katz, one of the members of our Embodying Spirit cohort. Nancy, there you are.
Hi. Yeah, a little blown away on many levels. And I just have to contextualize life here today. My husband and I just moved today and are in a space I hadn't been in before, and in a transition. And I'm thrilled that that Chandana had seen images of the place that we just purchased and moved to, which is only 15 minutes from where we were living. But and she was excited about the place for us and the move. So that's really kind of cool. I guess in some ways I'm representing the embodied spirit group, and I have a very strong memory of doing some work with Chandana at one of the retreats, an authentic movement exercise where I was really grieving some dear beloved friends, and then I found myself snapping my fingers and singing, "I've got a lot of living to do." And we just laughed, and it was just this really wonderful, wonderful sharing that we referred back to at different times. And while she shared with us at the retreat, one of the retreats, about her illness, didn't really know what to do with that, because we would have these intimate week-long sessions and then go off into our lives in different parts of the country. So in March, I went through a bunch of emails. And March 13th, 2019, we got an email. "My dear ESEB beloveds, I am reaching out for support, something I'm not very experienced with. I'm currently reevaluating my health and self-care plan. As I approach my 3rd year since the breast cancer diagnosis, I see my efforts have kept me alive, but have neither turned around nor halted the cancer growth and spread. I'm writing to request your prayers and support because I sense that I have to get out of my bubble to heal. If you are inclined to call, email, or write, I don't really text, I'd love to hear from you, how you are, what you're up to, and or a song, story, joke, book, or music recommendation would be grand. Also, please know you have an open invitation to come visit. Here in the Ozarks, the spring peepers, little frogs, in case you don't know them, are calling, and they say, pick me, for the renewal of life. You're all in my heart, sending big love and many blessings." And then she followed that with her contact information. I decided that I'd take her up on her invitation. I had time, and my background provided me with some practical advice. I'm trained as an occupational therapist, though I haven't practiced in a long time. I made plane reservations and forwarded my emailed itinerary, which she didn't see that forwarded email, because email and technology was not really one of her things. In fact, I remember first meeting Chandana and rendezvousing at the airport in Oakland to drive up to the retreat. And she made it clear that she didn't text. And we had all become so dependent on calling or texting and communication. And I'm just so struck. Here we are, 59 people connecting through technology. I didn't quite understand how that all worked until how her absence of that, and what her rationale was of that. It was like, get with the program. The more I knew her, the more I understood that she had her own way of operating. And when I visited her and entered her home where technology didn't really touch, she didn't have internet at home. She did at her office, and she had a very old computer in her office where she would go to see clients, but also that's where she would do her email. And I think that was until very, very recently when she brought it into her home. But the vibe, and not only was the house gorgeous and the home that she lived in stunning, but really it was palpable to not have all the electronics and the internet and things there. I was really, really struck by that. After my visit, I reported the following to our group. I'm writing this with permission from our beloved Chandana, who I had the pleasure of visiting with in Arkansas last month over Shavuot. I got to see how our Southern belle lives in harmony with nature in her beautiful home on multiple acres. Without hesitation, she can identify all of her neighborhood flora and fauna and tell wonderful stories about each of them. I came to appreciate that, unlike most of us, the internet and access to it are not regular parts of Chandana's life. And as I said, I could feel the difference. That said, I have received permission from Chandana to use this tool to communicate with y'all about what's going on for her. I've also learned the value and handiness of the term y'all. During my brief visit, along with relishing Chandana's pluckiness and general delightfulness, I witnessed the limitations she had been enduring from the pain imposed by the cancer itself, as well as the limited use of her left hand and arm due to lymphedema. I'm skipping part of this here. As I said, I asked Chandana for permission to share this information with you, which had to do with treatment she was going to undergo. She reported that all prayers for health, healing, and well-being are welcome. I know that that was the beginning. It was a huge step for her to ask for help. And what I found over the years since that time was that while that openness existed, that, as was mentioned before, she was much more at ease, asking about and learning about and engaging with other people and what was going on for them. And I have to say that for me, the past year and a half has been very challenging with limitations of the pandemic. And I struggled with how to be present with Chandana, with my truth, given the awareness of hers when what was going on for her. And every phone call, phone conversation that we had just really filled us both with delight, I have to say. And I guess more than anything else, I mean, I have other things here. It's really wonderful to connect with all of you and to know that we all have a lot of living to do, and I'm so grateful that that Chandana has been part of mine. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. So as we come in toward a landing, as my dear teacher, Rabbi Zalman Schachter Shalom used to say, we're coming in for a landing, folks. A little bit more to say. I really do. I want to thank everybody that has spoken, everybody that is here. And particularly, I want to take a moment to acknowledge those who supported Chandana on the ground. And Patricia made some reference to folks, but I want to say the names of the people who we have been in connection with, who've been helping, including Patricia Studer, Jamie White, Gwen Benham, and Sue Clemens, who Patricia also mentioned, have just helping Chandana, especially in this last time as she's needed more and more help, closing her practice, selling her building in town, getting paperwork together, getting to medical appointments, making some decisions, caring for herself, for her home, for her animals. And Marcy Benham, you mentioned her, Patricia, and then somebody else who I'm not aware of, but the people who did the really close, intimate personal cares on a day-to-day basis. Want to mention Andrea Becker-Herman, whom I've talked with numerous times, her niece. Chandana stayed with Andrea's family a number of times when she was going to the Chicago area for treatment. I want to mention Josh and your partner, Catherine, who you were right there. You were ready to be there whenever she would let you. And you were with her when she passed. I want to mention Rabbi Greisman of Chabad in Northwestern Arkansas, who did an amazing job, from what I was told, of making sure she had a beautiful burial with as close to what her wishes were as she wanted. Sue told me that he, when they put the vault in the ground, which was not what Chandana wanted, she wanted to be buried in the earth, and that's not possible to be buried in the earth in consecrated ground in Northwestern Arkansas. He made the guys who were putting the vault in push the machinery so hard that it cracked the vault, and dirt came in. And Sue said she was in tears when that happened. And that's, I just have great respect and love for somebody who will do that for someone that they don't even know that well, just to make sure that that person has the burial that they wanted. I want to thank the Embodying Spirit community. Nancy spoke for that small group of our cohort, maybe 10, 12 people who kind of jumped into action a couple years ago and started making regular phone calls to Chandana. And she didn't really want to talk about things that were too heavy and intense, but she wanted the company and to talk about books, and as someone said, and the garden and where the seasons were at, things she loved. So I want to just say a few more words about, and I want to share some of her words. Chandana intended to join the Embodying Spirit program in the spring of 2015 for the Embodying Torah retreat. Each participant in that retreat had been asked to make a presentation somehow embodying their birth parsha, that portion of the Torah that was being read the week that they were born. So during Chandana's birth week in 1952, it was a double portion that was being read from the last book of the Torah, the book of Deuteronomy, Nitzavim Vayelech, which is a section that is always read very close to the Jewish high holidays. And it contains Moses's last speech to the people, his admonitions, his warnings, his exhortations. So the day before Chandana was to fly to California, or maybe 2 days before, there was a gigantic storm system that walloped Arkansas and the whole lower Middle West. And she did everything possible to try to get a flight. She couldn't get a flight out of Fayetteville. So she didn't join us for that retreat. She didn't join us until the next retreat, which was in the fall, which was for embodying Kabbalah. And our cohort never got to experience how she might have digested and embodied her very powerful section of the Torah. But about a year ago, September, she did some writing, which Sue and Jamie forwarded to me, handwritten sheets. They sent me pictures that they took of what Chandana wrote, which she called her spiritual ethical will. And I want to share a few parts of it with you, and I'm calling it The Torah of Chandana Becker. She wrote, love matters, every day matters, the quality of every interaction matters. Be thankful for all the grace and goodness and beauty. She wrote, I'm most grateful for so much goodness in my life, my good family, loving, caring, loyal, ethical values that I admire, how giving they are, encouraged education and experiencing life, accepting, always provided for me with ease, food, clothing, comforts, and fun, spiritual life and practices, grace. I guess she was appreciating that even while she was being willful and rebellious. Or maybe she came to that later, I don't know. Care of friends, enriching relationships, opportunities to share and give and serve, opportunities to learn to ask for, to receive, to accept from others. These are her gratitudes. Grateful for a long, rich married life. Grateful for pets, nature, beauty. This was a year ago, September. My hopes for the future: to get well, recuperate, enter a full life again, have more ways, old, new, hybrid, to engage in mutual exchange, that the divisiveness of our country and world is healed so that we can come together to take care of everyone and save our planet. If I had to do it all over again, she writes, I'd do it all the same, because that's what brings me here to this moment. And it is meant to be. Otherwise, if I could avoid harm or hurt to anyone or anything, I'd want to. But what's done is done. And this calls for forgiveness out of love, understanding, and acceptance of self, others, and what is. So I want to close with these words, which are from Chandana's birth parsha, Deuteronomy 30, verses 11 through 14. Ki hamitzvah hazot asher anochi mitzavcha hayom lo nifleti mimecha velo rechokahi. For this mitzvah, this spiritual imperative that I lay out for you today, is not hidden from you nor distant. Lo vashamayim hi. It's not in heaven that you should say, who will go up to heaven for us and take it for us so that we can hear it and perform it? Velo me'aver layam. Neither is it across the sea that you should say, who will cross over the sea for us and take it for us so that we can hear it and perform it? Ki karov elecha hadavar me'od. Rather, this thing is very close to you. Beficha uvilvavecha la'asoto. In your mouth and in your heart to do it. Patricia D. Chandana Becker heard it, felt it, held it in her heart, and did it. So I invite us to rise if that's comfortable for you. I'm going to share the screen and we're going to sing the ancient prayer that invites her soul to make an aliyat haneshama, to be held beneath the wings of Shekhinah. El Male Rachamim Shochen Bameromim Amitzeh Minucha Nechona תחת כנפי השכינה, ממעלות קדושים וטהורים, זוהר רקיע מזהירים, את נשמת רוחל דרר בת מרדכי ישעיהו ושהינדה, שהלכה לעולמה. בגן עדן תהא מנוחתה. Ana Baal harachamim yastireha beseter kinafecha leolamim utzror bitzror hachaim et nishmata Adonai Unachalata v'tanuach b'shalom al mishkava. V'nomar Amen. Great source of compassion, living beyond our knowing. We remember with deep affection Patricia B. Chandana, daughter of Marvin Isaiah and Hazel Harriet, who shone in the lives of her loved ones like the brightness of the sky. We ask that she find rest in your eternal embrace, like a child in the arms of its mothers. May Chandana's soul be bound up in the bond of life, the universe in all of its mystery has become her home. We prepare now to say the traditional prayer, the mourner's Kaddish, just noting that this prayer that is said by mourners has been said for thousands of years, is not a prayer about death. It's a prayer, it's an acknowledgement of the mystery, it's an expansion of consciousness, and it acknowledges that there's so much that we can't know and don't understand, and that nevertheless we open our hearts, our minds, and our souls to connect with the unseen realms. And we do that even in the midst of our sorrow, our grief, our very human sadness at the loss of our beloved one. So I want to invite those who are, we will be saying the Kaddish prayer for Chandana. And I know that Eleonora, you want to also bring the name of a dear person from your community who passed just today. And there may be other names that you might want to unmute.
Yes, thank you, Rabbi. That would be Linda Diane Felt, who passed away this morning in Michigan.
And are there other names that you want to bring, either of people who have passed in this last few days, this last month, the last year, or even in years past at this time? Please unmute if you would like to and share their names.
Leo Deal.
Dr. Selma Miller.
Joyce Whitecotton.
Julius Cohen.
Richard Wright and Theo Danzig.
Jack Wolf and Kay Weatherford.
Phyllis Lipton, my mother.
Ray Castellino, John Chitty,
Yes.
Mary Jo Ruggieri.
Yes.
David Pinto.
Oh.
Share the name of Cantor Richard Kaplan and Rabbi Art Levine. And I invite anyone who would like to unmute as we say this prayer together. It'll be kind of a cacophony, but we'll hear each other, and that feels so important.
Isidore Isaac Bergman.
Thank you. So we pray together. Yitkara.
Shamir Rabba.
Amar.
Mad
Sylvia
Arce.
Amlich Malchut.
Emlich Malhute.
Chayechon.
Hayahon.
Israel.
Deked Kol Israel Ba'ala Bisman
Hari.
Peru. Amen.
Yehi Shnei.
Shalom Rabba.
Rach. Le'olam.
Amen. Amaya.
Yiparach.
Barak.
Yishtabach.
Yishtabach.
Ar.
Ramam. Vietnaseh.
Hadar.
Vietnaseh. Hale. Halal. Shmeid Kashah. Brithu.
Le'ela Minko.
Kol Birchata. Vishrata. Vishbachata. Vinechamata. V'amran. Yalmad.
Amen. Amin Shemaya B'chaim. Ya'kol Yisrael Vimru Amin. V'sei Shalom.
Shalom b'mamav. Huya aseh shalom. Aleinu. Yamkol Yisrael. Yamkol Yoshevei Tevel. Imru. Amen.
So perhaps if you could mute once again, and we'll end with this beautiful interpretive version of the Kaddish by the poet Marge Piercy. Look around us, search above us, below, behind. We stand in a great web of being joined together. Let us praise, let us love the life we are lent, passing through us in the body of Israel and our own bodies. And let's say, Amen. Time flows through us like water. The past and the dead speak through us. We breathe out our children's children, blessing. Blessed is the earth from which we grow. Blessed the life we are lent. Blessed the ones who teach us. Blessed the ones we teach. Blessed is the word that cannot say the glory that shines through us and remains to shine, flowing past distant suns on the way to forever. Let's say, Amen. Blessed is light, blessed is darkness, but blessed above all else is peace, which bears the fruits of knowledge on strong branches. And let's say, Amen. Peace that bears joy into the world, peace that enables love, peace over Israel everywhere. Blessed and holy is peace. And let's say, Amen. So we wish comfort to all the mourners. Hamakom yinachem etchem b'toch sha'ar avlei. Beyond the Yerushalayim, the Yoshvei Tevel, may the holy oneness, the memory that is a blessing of all the beloveds, of our beloved Chandana, bless us. May we be comforted, and may we take our time to grieve, to mourn, to remember. It takes time. So with that, we will close the formal part of our time together. Want to give those who, with great gratitude to all who spoke, and all of us who are here together, and those who are needing to go to sleep because it's pretty late on the East Coast, to take your leave if you wish. And anyone who would like to stay on for a while and share more, share spontaneously, I'll hold the room open for a while longer. But thank you so much for being here to support the family and to support all of us who are missing our dear Chandana. Hold the space with a little song as people are taking their leave. Rosie, bezim haradia, Yeshua, Rosie, bezim haradia. Oh, what I'd like to offer is just if anyone would like to share further or spontaneously has not spoken, down on the bottom of your screen, there's a little button that says reactions. And at the bottom of, if you click on that, at the bottom, it says raise hand. And I'm going to do it so you can see what it looks like. I'm raising my hand and then I move to the top of the screen and I have a little hand there. So if you will do that, it'll help me know who would like to speak, and I can just call on people one at a time. If you can't find that, just wave your hand. But so yeah, China Bear and then Gwen.
Oh, this has been very moving. And one of the people that was with didn't really know Chandana very much, except through the time we spent together pretty intensively with the ESEB spiritual group with Rabbi Diane and some of you that are here. But I have really gotten to know her in this last year or so through her illness, with many conversations. And well, first of all, I just want to say that who's ever left over from this, from having spoken, it's just been wonderful to hear other contexts of Chandana's life and family, professional connections, her healing capacities. And I just, she really touched me very deeply during our time together. And I found her to be very quirky and very delightful. And our time when that week I spent with her at the last gathering, I thought she seemed very introverted to me, very, very quiet and very reserved. But when she opened up, she was hysterical. She had such a great sense of humor. And I'll never forget when people were doing presentations of that we had to do. And she said, well, I didn't, and with that accent, which kind of just, I loved hearing. As she said, but I do have a song. And she sang this song that I guess she had written. I don't know if it was improvised in the moment or what, but it was so moving. And it was about, the gist of it was, you kind of do all this work. I mean, this is my interpretation of it. This is what I remember. You do all this work and you do all this spiritual work and you trudge through life. And, at the end of it, what do you get? The Ein Sof, which, if you don't know, is nothing. And essentially, and there was just such irony, and it was so beautiful and so deep. I was just very touched by her. And when I came home, I found this beautiful little bird feather stuck somewhere in a book or something that I had. And it took me a while, but I ultimately realized it had to be her. And I asked her if she had left that for me, and she had. So we really connected over nature a lot. And when we talked, I'd be out in the garden and I'd tell her like every plant and every like level of its growth. And she was so interested in whatever was going on. And that was so much generosity. And the last thing I want to say is that I had been talking about these plants I wanted called Siberian iris that are very hard to get. And she said, I have a lot of them on my property and I'm going to send some to you. And she was pretty sick at the time. And I just sort of put it in the back of my mind. And then Marcy, who I don't know if she's here anymore, Marcy Benham, I guess that's her last name, told me that she, upon Chandana's asking her to do, went out and collected many of these bulbs and sent them to me here in California, where I am. And I did speak with Chandana this past week before she died, the day before. And I told her all these bulbs have been planted, and when they bloom, I know that I will see her in them. And I feel so grateful to have this living, what feels like a living reminder. As she said to me, they've brought me many, many years of pleasure, and I want to share them with you. So it's, I do feel that she's really touched me personally very deeply, and I see how it's happened for many people. And what a great spirit. And I really will miss her, and I do miss her already. That's all. And thank you, Diane, for doing this, and everybody. That's all.
Thank you, Tanya Bear. Glenn?
So, Diane, I think you said Trinidad and then myself. Should I hold off or should I? Okay, yeah. So thank you so much to Diane for holding the space, and to all of you for being here. And I wanted just to sort of essentialize a couple of things about my experience of Chandana, because so many people have already spoken, about so much of sort of her spirit and her brilliance and her deep commitment to healing and to sort of serving others. One of the things that I wanted to name was something that I think others folks in her family named, which was something about her stubbornness. And I think I just wanted to acknowledge that it was hard in some ways to love her in the way that I did, in the way that I think in the ways that we all did, and to know that she was dying, and to not be able to help her get to a different kind of treatment. And I want to say that for me, this memorial helped to sort of soothe my spirit a little bit around some of the edge of that for me, because I understand that she came out of the womb in this way, and that she just, as I think is true for many of us, the things that were hard were also the things that were most glorious for her. And so I'm honoring, her feistiness and her spirit, even though I also have so much sorrow for the ways in which she wasn't able to procure the kind of treatment that I think many of us that I have talked to, who know her, wish that she had been able to get for herself. So to name that. I also wanted to name that, like China Bear, I was one of the folks from Embodying Spirit who sort of stepped up to have more contact with her when she did reach out, to ask for help and support. And I wanted to say that we actually talked a tremendous amount about her. We didn't talk about gardening. We rarely talked about books. We really talked about hard stuff that had to do with her. And I mean, maybe some of that is because I'm a psychologist and I didn't know her super well. So I think that gave me the freedom to kind of ask direct questions and to go there in a way that for whatever reason she was able to do. And so just to say, I did hear a lot from her about her sorrow, at what was happening to her, her thoughts about death and dying, about burial. And, it was a privilege to be able to be in that kind of proximity, to her deepest fears and longings. And that she was able to do that. She was able to take up space, for herself in that way, at least in my experience of her, which I'm so glad for her that she was able to do that, and not just to take care of others, but to take space for herself. And then finally, I just wanted to try to essentialize something that I received from her, and which I think of as a great gift that she has. So in the final retreat for Embodying Spirit, we were gifted with the assignment of creating a ritual for ourselves of whatever kind we wanted. And the one that I created for myself was related to my own experiences of being an embodied woman, and to menstruation in particular. And after the exercise was over, the entire group, spoke blessings and sort of shared responses. And even though I had spent more time with some of the other folks in the cohort, what I remember, the only thing that I remember that was said to me in the wake of that experience was what Chandana said. And she said something like, may you be blessed to bathe in rivers of blood, she emphasized it. And for me, that essentializes something about her, that there was, I understand that she had a brilliant mind and a lot of, educational sort of prowess. But in my experience of her, what really shone through was her deep, like soulful, embodied, intuitive ways of being in relationship to the most essential things in life. And I think that that's why I remember that blessing, that it just cuts through any kind of intellectual noise around the ritual and just offers this deep, like ancient, eternal, essential, embodied, earthly kind of energy. And I think of Chandana in that way, and think that that's for me one of the greatest gifts in knowing her, was to be in her presence, in her embodying of that kind of wisdom and knowledge and set of values, to be in the presence of that, and to feel caught up in that, and sort of taught and shown truth in that kind of way. And so, I honor her stubbornness, even though I wish in some ways that she had been just a little less stubborn, I honor her capacity to take up space for herself in her life in the way that I experienced her doing with me. And I really deeply honor her great gifts of insight and of knowing and of living from that knowing. To Barty, and many blessings to her and to all of you in her, circle of loved ones.
Thank you, Gwen. I saw that Andrea was wanting to speak, but she left. So Leah, your hand is raised. Would you like to unmute?
I was a client of Chandana, and she helped put me back together. I have a TBI, and I'm still suffering from that. But I remember walking into her office, and she had this Miro painting in her office. And I knew I was in the right place and comforted in that very moment, because the Miro painting was all disconnected, as we all know. And I couldn't feel my body. It wasn't connected. My arms weren't connected to my shoulders, and my legs weren't connected anywhere. And I feel like over the years that I spent with her, she put me back together. And I always wanted to be her friend. Of course, good therapists are never friends, because then you can't come back to them. And so there was this place that I knew she wasn't letting me in. I knew she was married to someone who wasn't Jewish either. And we had little conversations about that, because I was so married to someone who isn't Jewish. And we had conversations that were very personal, that allowed me to have a kind of intimacy with her. And what I am learning listening today to everyone speak is that that privateness that she had for me as a client wasn't just reserved for me, but that was much of her being. And colleagues have spoken about her polarity work. And during the time that I was with her, the polarity work was really important in terms of connecting me. And she hurt her elbow. And there was a long period of time where she couldn't do the polarity work. And how painful that was for her, not the physical pain of it, but the inability to connect with her clients in a way that she had been able to connect during the polarity work. I could probably go on for a long time, but I've had 3 healers in my life, and Chandana will remain as a very special person in my life. I would bump into her in the synagogue, because I'm kind of a once-a-year Jew, and show up at high holidays in time for Yizkor. And I think we had that in common, but I'm knowing now that she reached back into her roots and her belief systems and her values from listening to all this. And so I want to thank everybody who shared tonight, because it let me into those places where I never got with her. I think that she helped me begin to value myself, and that part of my being connected us. And I appreciated what you said, Gwen, about her ability to just anchor, I guess is the best way to say it, and ground, help me ground myself, and gave me many, many gifts that I will carry with me through the rest of my life. And the beauty of her home that I'm hearing about, and the beauty that she was. I always loved picking up the books that she had in her little house that she shared with her clients. And I just want to thank all of you this evening. And Rabbi Diane, I know you not, but I appreciate that she found you, and maybe now I have to. I'll figure out how to connect if someone will stick something in the chat. But again, it's those connections that we make. I always tell people to talk to strangers, and here I am. So thank you all very much, and thank you, Chandana. I will miss her. In the years that I wasn't seeing her any longer, I would see her around town here in Fayetteville at the farmer's market and various and sundry other places. And it was always great moments of joy. And the last time I saw her, I knew that something was terribly wrong, but I didn't know what. And probably the last 3 or 4 times I saw her, I kept saying to my husband, something is wrong with Chandana, and I feel like I can't reach out. So I prayed a lot for her, even not knowing why until now. But thank you for just giving me this space to share my time that I had with her from a very different perspective than family and friends and colleagues, but as someone who benefited so much from her grace and her joy and her depth of spirituality and the values that are grounded so much in our heritage. And I appreciated that a lot. So thank you.
Thank you, Leah. Thank you. Yes. Good to hear from someone who, because we know many, many people benefited from her work. And it was so hard for her when she had to close her practice down. She really waited as long as she could. She resisted that. So thank you. So let's see, Michelle.
I love Chandana. Sometimes I would call just to hear her answering machine. The tinkle in her voice.
I did that too.
Would make me smile. And she said some of the time, you know, sometimes I don't pick up because I don't feel well. I said, honey, you don't need to pick up. I just need to hear your voice. And that little nugget will be enough. And then, of course, we would have long conversations about my rescue dog and her turtles and our life. What to say about my beautiful friend? It's hard to believe that I can't call that answering machine right now and hear her sweet voice. But I did hear that she was supposed to go into hospice the day before, and there was some kind of a glitch. And because she was there at home the day before she left, that a lot of us got to call her, to hear her voice, and to say goodbye. That was sweet, to hear her whispered voice and being able to say, Chandana, I love you. She told me the same. So I called my niece today and I said, I'm going to go to a memorial service and I'm sad. And she said, what are you going to do to remember? And the first thing I think of whenever I think of Chandana is that delicious voice. I said, well, I have these tiny bells that I used to wear instead of perfume. I used to choose a different sound every day. So I went in the bedroom and I got one of my little tinkly elephant bells. And I'm going to wear a bell. And whenever I hear a tinkling sound, I'm going to remember my beautiful Chandana and it'll make me smile. So that's what I'm doing. Gosh, there is something about being mirrored back to myself, talking to my friend and seeing through her eyes who I am. That was such an exquisite gift. Good friend. Safe travels, my friend. I told my niece today that she'll welcome me home when I go, but I gotta give her some time so she can figure out where to put the lamp. And that's what I know about my beautiful Chandana. Diane, thank you for doing this for all of us. You know we need this, and you know you're the one to hold the space and bring us together like this, so thank you.
So I know it's hard to leave, and but maybe we can end with a poem. And I chose a favorite Mary Oliver poem called "In Blackwater Woods." Maybe you know it. And I'll read this, and then we'll take our leave for this evening. This is Mary Oliver's "In Blackwater Woods." Look, the trees are turning their own bodies into pillars of light, are giving off the rich fragrance of cinnamon and fulfillment. The long tapers of cattails are bursting and floating away over the blue shoulders of the ponds. And every pond, no matter what its name is nameless now. Every year, everything I have ever learned in my lifetime leads back to this. The fires and the black river of loss, whose other side is salvation, whose meaning none of us will ever know. To live in this world, you must be able to do three things: to love what is mortal, to hold it against your bones, knowing your own life depends on it, and when the time comes to let it go, to let it go. So lots of love to everyone, love and comfort and gratitude. It's been a blessing to be with you this evening, to hear the voices and to hear the silence, to sing and to pray and to remember. And my blessings to all of you and to all of us. Lots of gratitude. Thank you.